Welcome, it's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard, good to be with you. We got a lot of show today. Adrienne Lawrence, attorney at law, TYT contributor, will be breaking down news of the day with me. And in the bullpen, Eric Brakey, senior spokesperson for Young Americans for Liberty, talking about mask mandates. Should be an interesting debate. Top story of the day. A cop decides to falsify at least 30 traffic stops that never happened. Falsified all of it from top to bottom. Let's put up a picture of this former police officer. Former police officer arrested last week, created more than 30 fake traffic violations over the span of about 4 months. Remember, he did this in a span of 4 months, according to the warrant for his arrest. His name is Edgar Gonzalez, 31 years of age, of Stamford. Resigned in June after an investigation into his traffic stop reports yielded evidence that he fabricated 33 traffic violations between February and April 2021, according to the warrant. Mr. Gonzalez, a Stamford resident, was charged last week with 5 counts of third-degree computer crime and 5 counts of second-degree forgery, according to the state judicial database. Officer Gonzalez, who was a 5-year veteran of the department's patrol division, has been released after posting a $100,000 bond. He is scheduled to be arraigned on Friday. So let me give you some background to this. Now, I want to remind you that this cop was allowed to do this because of a system in place that gives officers too much damn power. And I'm also going to make a connection here between policy and people that has been underreported in this story. So the investigation began last May after a person contacted the police when they discovered a Google alert. The Google alert showed their name was included on the department's website for being issued a traffic warning. The warrant stated, a Google alert is an email a user receives based on keywords like their name that they want to be notified about when it's posted online, okay? Real simple process. Google has a system that says, hey, if these names pop up, send me an email, let me know. A lot of people use it to protect their own name as well as the names of people in their families, friends, etc. All right, very commonly used program. So all of a sudden, this person gets a Google alert saying, hey, your name's on this website. Your name's on this website because they're saying that you have a traffic ticket and you may get a warrant for your arrest if you do not make your court date appearance. The male victim said he was never stopped by a Norwalk police officer and never was issued a warning. Detective Sergeant Leung wrote in the warrant, a further review of Gonzalez's computer aired dispatch, CAD they call it. That activity for that day showed that Officer Gonzalez self-reported a total of 10, count them, 10 traffic stops, okay? So he's super cop, which included 10 e-ticket warnings, but not the issuance of any actual infractions. So here's the game, all right? He's making it look like he's doing work. He's not actually pulling anyone over. He's not actually at these stops. He's simply in front of a computer. It gets deeper. The log says the man was stopped April 21st, which the victim said was not possible as he was ill at that time and remained in a hotel in Norwalk for a 3-day period, according to the warrant. Each city police vehicle is equipped with a mobile data terminal, and officers are required to include in traffic reports the motorist driver's license number, car make and model, registration information, traffic stop location, and time, and the road and traffic conditions at the same time, according to the warrant. However, many of this officer's stops, self-reported traffic violations were incomplete, missing driver's license numbers, races, and the gender, the warrant stated. I also saw the same pattern where the citation information is incomplete, where the sex, race, operator number, and involvement information is incomplete, Young wrote in the warrant. Additionally, officers all have access to the Connecticut Online Law Enforcement Communications Teleprocessing System, which allows them to run a license plate and driver's license numbers according to the warrant. No body camera footage exists of any of the noted traffic stops. And in some cases, the officer's vehicle showed he was not at the location of the stop at the times indicated on his reports. That's in the warrant as well. Now, here's the system that allowed for all of this to happen. It's called Collect, COLLECT. By using the Collect database to falsify traffic stop information, Gonzalez violated its training and use policy, which resulted in the computer crimes charges and warrant stated. The state's preliminary findings were shared with the Stanford State's attorney, who called for a criminal investigation. The local police spokesperson said, Sergeant Sophia Golano said Gonzalez resigned from the department amid the probe in June. Now, they knew he was guilty already. So let me bring to your attention a few things here. Number one, there should be no policy that creates this kind of power for a police officer without there being a real check and balance. Number two, if a cop has this much power to where they can literally sit in front of a computer and create false tickets, there needs to be a routine audit process so that abuses like this do not happen. Number three, this is why folks say defund the police. You know why? Because money went to that system from taxpayers. The money that paid for that system and paid the salary of that cop was used to create victims out of citizens who were completely innocent. So here's what defund the police says. It doesn't say take all money from law enforcement, but it does say you have some unnecessary programs, damn it. That's unnecessary. Take the money out of that unnecessary program and put it into a program that actually creates common decency and respect between cop and community. This program does not. It is harassing. It has shown you exactly what it has the capability of doing. And while yes, the person who did this is corrupt, but there's a system that created the atmosphere for his corruption. Attorney, what are your thoughts here?
I think you are absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head in terms of needing oversight. Also, in addition to essentially creating this system that allows officers to abuse their power. You know, when we look at what are the consequences of things like this, because people might just think, oh, it's just a traffic ticket. Well, there are fines that come from that. Losing your license, suspension, how would that impact your job? Increased insurance premiums, all of these things that essentially this officer has unrestrained control over, and he's out here just having a good time. And essentially the system is allowing it and enabling it. And you're absolutely right in terms of reducing funding, because we don't need systems like this in place. Even the fact that officers are conducting traffic stops, it just speaks to what is truly the value of this, especially given all of the areas in our society that need greater funding, such as education, and where we need to truly be putting our resources. But I am very glad that this man is being prosecuted, especially for as high a crimes as computer fraud and whatnot, because that needed to happen.
Yeah, and when you look at municipalities, you know this, Adrienne, municipalities are allowed to do so many things that really would violate the conscience of a human being. They can have quotas, they can have grants or grant money based on contact with community, meaning you gotta have a certain number of pullovers per hour in order to get grant money. That's insane. That has nothing to do with justice. And so these programs all are aimed at a bottom line, which literally is money. For this guy, I think he was doing it to somehow get a promotion and increase status at the department. Okay, now, those guys, those murderers, those killers are on trial again. Now, the federal murder hate crimes charge. And there's a reason why this is important. I know some people have pushed back and said, well, why do we need to do this again? They've already been convicted. I will explain that to you. New evidence has been presented showing the insane racism of the three men who killed Ahmaud Arbery. The three white men who were convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery, a black jogger whose shooting death in 2020 sparked protest and calls for racial justice, had histories of making racist comments and slurs in text messages, according to the federal prosecutor on Monday. Now, here's why this is important. During the first trial, a lot of that information was not allowed. It was considered to be prejudicial. The probative value was there, but the prejudicial value was too much. However, in a case like this, when you are literally proving that the entire reason they killed Ahmaud Arbery was because of their racism or their hate of an immutable quality, that then becomes presented evidence in the case. So new evidence has now been presented. Bernstein said there will be testimony that Greg McMichael, a former police officer and district attorney's office investigator, ranted about black people being nothing but trouble and posted memes on social media that supported it, suggesting that it's better to have a loaded gun than to call the police. Okay, that's important because that's exactly what they did here. They took justice, as they called it, into their own hands, but it was in fact criminal. Additionally, the prosecutor said the third defendant, remember this guy, William Roddy Bryan, who was recording the entire matter because they were going to use the recording as kicks later, had also used the N-word and other slurs. In one instance, after learning his daughter was dating a black man, she said Bryan commented that his daughter has her an N-word now. That's according to the Associated Press. All right, let's put up their pictures. All three of these monsters, look at them. They represent a larger demographic in this country. You know, America is a very beautiful and ugly place at the same time. A multiracial jury was seated in the federal hate crimes trial of the three men. As defense attorneys admitted, their clients had used offensive language and opinions about black people. That's what they call it. Oh, it's not racist, it's just offensive. But the defense attorneys insisted the three men's pursuit of the 25-year-old was prompted by honest, though erroneous suspicion that he committed crimes not solely based on his race, the Associated Press reported, okay? Let me read a quote from one of the defense attorneys, okay? I'm not going to ask you to like Travis McMichael. I'm not going to ask you to decide that he done nothing wrong. But I am going to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty to this indictment. What in the hell kind of statement is that from an attorney? Okay, McMichael, along with his father, Greg McMichael, chased Arbery in their pickup truck after he ran past their Brunswick, Georgia home. We all know when that happened in 2020. The federal proceeding, which will examine whether race was a factor in the killing, begins 1 month after the three men were sentenced to life in prison in a separate murder trial in Georgia state court. A jury there found the trio guilty of felony murder and other charges in connection to the death of Mr. Arbery. Okay, so let me remind everyone why this is important, okay? Hate violence is intentionally, specifically targeted at individuals because of their personal, immutable characteristics. They are very personal crimes with very emotional and psychological impacts on the victim and the victim's community. Here's why you prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. One, ultimate justice. This is called prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. They deserve that. Number two, societal messaging. You know, we prosecute criminals not only to punish them, but to also send a message to society at large. Your racism will be dealt with in a very different way in this country. It will be dealt with in the way we choose based on your horrific reason for killing someone. Number three, it creates case law. There will be evidence presented here that will in fact create precedent. That's important for the future prosecution of hate crimes under the federal statute in America. Adrienne, there's pushback. People are saying, well, he's already been found guilty, or they have already been found guilty. This is now overkill. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Oh, I don't think this is overkill whatsoever, because if they're serving their life sentences or 30-year sentences in Brian's case with the possibility of parole, you know what? It just speaks to the fact that at least one of them could be out in 30 years, which is an absolute possibility. And if they are enjoying a life of luxury in federal prison as opposed to going to Georgia State prison, they're also going to essentially have a nicer time. And that was something that the Arbery family was not okay with. They weren't okay with them taking and accepting a plea deal that would essentially let them stay in federal court and potentially just give them more opportunity to enjoy the rest of their life as opposed to actually suffering consequences. And so having this trial come to pass, where we are essentially going to be looking at what behavior is inherently racist, and the fact that Ahmaud Arbery is Black, and that was a core key tenet. What essentially we're going to be doing is testing society and saying, is it ready to acknowledge its own racism? Because that is what I think that the defendants are hoping, that society is willing to say, that even if we do use the N-word liberally, or even if we're just trying to quote unquote protect our neighborhood, that doesn't mean you're racist. And so that's why they're out here gambling, hoping that that jury will not convict them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We all know that if a young white male was jogging through that community, this would not have happened to him. Obviously, the catalyst was the race of this individual who is now dead, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. Okay, racist white people are saying that their patience is running out. Let's put up the picture. This is in Boston. They are holding up a sign saying white patience has limits, okay? This is on an overpass, all right? A highway overpass. I have not heard local Boston media talk about this, so we are. The signs read, white patience has limits. It's speculated that the group involved is the Nationalist Club. I will give you some information about that. Described by the Anti-Defamation League as a neo-Nazi group with small regional chapters in the United States and abroad. They typically try to hide who they are because they are in fact cowards, all right? Let's put up this other picture of this group. On January 22nd, the group protested in front of a women's hospital in Boston holding a bed sheet with Black lettering reading, B&W Hospital kills whites. And then they passed out this flyer, condemning by name 2 doctors associated with the hospital and Harvard Medical School who have been working with Mass General to establish greater equity in healthcare for non-white communities. What does their flyer say? No anti-white policies in hospitals. Anti-white? According to the Counter Extremism Project, NSC members have stockpiled weapons, undergone physical training for future confrontations, and other chapters of the group have violent histories. In September of 2020, German police raided multiple homes, including that of an NSC member, and seized weapons and Nazi paraphernalia. On January 6, 2021, NSC members posted pictures of the NSC paraphernalia on Telegram, claiming that they were taken at a protest at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. in July of 2020. Several NSC members were arrested for disorderly conduct in Rogersville, Tennessee, after attempting to antagonize protesters at a Black Lives Matter rally. The NSC members reportedly gave Nazi salutes, yelled racial slurs, and attempted to assault protesters, according to local police. Now, it's important for me to say this. This is happening all over the country, it's happening all over the world. You have this rise of white public nationalism. Where is it coming from? It's always been there. It has always been there. The sentiment, the psychology, the sociology, it has always been there. They are now becoming more public because they have champions like Donald J. Trump. They have champions like Steve Bannon. Remember, President Barack Obama did not bring this out. A Black president did not create this kind of racist public racism in the United States. But Donald Trump did. Now, is Donald Trump the reason why racism exists? Of course not. Donald Trump, in a way, is a product of racism. And as I have said before, Donald Trump was in power because of the racist sentiment of Americans. That's real. This is why I question anyone who tells me they are a black Trump supporter. I question that. I wonder why. Adrienne, thoughts?
Well, I think this is something that we've seen over the course of history, just essentially where there is any advancement in terms of black liberation, liberty, access to resources, or just having a more vocal platform, that there is this pendulum swing pushback where it's by a number of white people, it's seen as an affront to dominance, to supremacy. And so this thought that, there's only patience has its limits, it's like it's totally comes right out of the playbook. And we're seeing that every day with these bomb threats against HBCUs. We're seeing all of these attacks during Black History Month and into the future, as far as I'm concerned. And this is all just par for course. The fact is that we live in a society that is dominated by white supremacy. And the moment that there's any kind of itching away at that, there's essentially that pendulum swing on back. And this is just demonstrative of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of racist white people who had implicit bias, who are now aware of how racist they were, are now realizing how racist they are. Because the way non-whites have been treated in America is basically as an invited guest. The citizenship dynamic has to be protected in this country. We are citizens of this nation. We have just as much of a right to be here, to be present, to be bold. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award. Best web host. We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against police. I told you we were coming.
You talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Smack your back that I like. Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Let me go to some of these comments. Before I get to the comments, just a big reminder, every day, The Watch List, an amazing show. J.R. Jackson, live weekdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Find out what stories you should be paying attention to in news, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. This is a new 10-week test series on TYT. Here's how you can support. Real simple. Make sure you watch live, number one. Also, subscribe and follow at youtube.com/watchlistTYT and facebook.com/watchlistTYT. Here at TYT, we spent more than 20 years building a progressive change machine, and we kept a good record of it. The impact on policy, candidates, issues, and more. With support and engagement from the TYT community, we set out to make change happen. You are part of that change, all right? Make sure you go and find out everything we've achieved. Not everything, but a lot of things, okay? Real simple, TYT.com/impacts, TYT.com/impacts. TYT on TCL, if you have an Android TV, watch TYT on TCL. When you turn on your TCL TV, click TCL channel. That's the button on the remote control. TCL channel icon on the TV launcher. Then scroll to the live tab and click the TYT logo. If you have a Roku TV, watch TYT on TCL by turning on your TCL TV, slide down from the home page and click the TCL channel icon, then scroll to live and click the TYT logo, okay? All right. Make it see the silver-haired dragon. Since the bullpen will be about mask mandates, I'll get a box of tissues ready for the whining and crying to come. Yeah. Shikata Ganai Beer, a dragon says, how lame a cop do you have to be to fake traffic stops? Yeah. I am shocked. I wonder how much overtime this cop received while faking traffic stops parked behind Target. What's crazy is that's probably exactly how we did it, by the way. All right, next TYT reporter. Be careful, better be careful. All those white snowflakes on that freeway might cause an accident. Yeah. Dark Angel 3. Proud Bostonian here. Historically a progressive, groundbreaking state. But some massholes are also quite racist. Check the buzz stories from 1974. All right. Jax Drax, the fact that they weren't allowed to present these monsters racist messages the first time after they committed a racially motivated hate crime is ridiculous. Yeah. Rhino Locke, my patience is running out with these people. This is not representative of Boston as a whole. We don't want these people here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Let me give you the beginning of this saga. Here it is.
What are you doing? What are you doing? You bogan slut. Get the out of Canberra, go get a job, and find something better to do with your
done.
What have you done?
Can I please have your license?
Honey, you just reversed into me. I have
Sorry, we're at a traffic light and you
say whatever you want, and you can put whatever you want, sweetheart. The media doesn't care about you.
I'm not talking to the media.
What's that? What are you looking for?
Don't you worry.
What are you looking for?
Oh,
did you see that?
A maniac.
Yeah. So get out of Canberra because there are a lot of us.
Good.
Yeah.
You're a maniac. Oh, I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. You idiot. You are.
Can you better call the police? Are you shut them all down?
Consequences and repercussions. This was instant karma on that Karen. The individuals who were filming, who were recording this, I feel bad for them because obviously this is a nuisance for them as well. But here's what happened. They're at a traffic light. Karen hits their car from behind. They get out. They are wondering, hey, what are you doing? Because it looks as if the Karen is trying to leave. They start recording, the Karen gets upset. The Karen then becomes aggressive, physically aggressive, and tries to run away. It's called hit and run, it's illegal. And immediately she hits their car again and damn near flips her car in the process. Adrienne, as I said, we highlight these insane instances because we are a mirror. We provide an opportunity for reflection and correction as well. How many laws did this Karen break here?
Okay, so I don't know necessarily if this Karen is on our side of the pond or the other side, but I can tell you, I feel pretty confident that she probably broke a number of laws. Right. And she did get essentially what she deserved, acting up like that, rear-ending these individuals and then having the nerve to speak to them the way that she did. She seemed to interfere with their camera at one point and then essentially driving up on their car. You know what, I just really hope that she suffers some serious, sincere consequences for her behavior that are beyond just an insurance claim, because this individual has some real problems.
Real problems. Let's put up a picture. I don't know if the Karen was ever caught. We'll put up the picture. That's the graphic. That's the best picture we have of this particular Karen. Okay, some people get upset over the silliest things. I got something for you. Double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Registration. Pay your registration, you whore. Pay your registration on your expired tags. On your expired tags. You have your expired tags on your card. You can't even pay for a registration.
I mean, Karen must work at the DMV. I mean, who gets that upset if your registration is not up to date? And I will say this in full transparency. I have driven a car without putting my updated registration sticker on the back. So it looks like I have an expired tag, but it's sitting somewhere in my glove department. I just haven't put it on yet. But damn, to call a person a whore because they don't have their registration sticker on their tag seems a bit much. And so we wanted to make sure we brought this to you as our double dose Karen. Adrienne, have you encountered anyone who's this passionate about an expired tag?
Not necessarily an expired tag, but a lot of other nonsense for sure. I think we've all encountered these types of Karens, but I love that she feels like she has some upper hand because her tag is updated. Like, get out of here. Not only is it not your business, but at the same time, it's not necessarily, the dig that you think it is. But this individual definitely needs help. Yeah, for real.
Yeah. All right. We got more. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back. A lot of show left. Let me read some of these amazing comments. I can't get to all of them, but thank you in advance for sending them. All right, we got Lynn. Lynn says, DMV Karen, yep, needs to stay in her own lane, figuratively and literally. Yeah, I mean, she was trying to do a hit and run. You gotta, I mean, the irony of it all. You talked all that trash. You've already committed a crime. You try to leave the scene of the crime you committed, and then you do another crime in the process of trying to leave that crime. I wonder what does she say, like being flipped over and unable to move. Okay, Jessica says, I've never even thought to look at someone else's registration or inspection stickers. What a weird thing to care about. But that is so damn true. Like out of all, let me tell you this. I want to get to a place in my life where that is at the top of my agenda. If I can get to a place in my life where that is important to me, I'm living a great life, okay? I'm living a remarkable life. When I can say, you know what? The most pressing thing in my life is your expired registration. Must be nice, Karen. Mitchell Evans, wow, she just bought them a new car and some. Car registration Karen, barely funky says, DMV Karen. That's right. Agnostic Sister says, I wait until the last possible moment to pay my registration. That sticker is most likely in the mail with mine. I do the same. I'm so guilty of it. All right. This is a person we've highlighted before, a serial Karen actually, all right? This guy is Ethan Smith. Let's take you to the first video, here it is.
All right guys, so this is one of the Afghan refugees that was, that's one of the Afghan refugees that was imported here, and they're staying at the hotel right down the road. So I'm gonna go and talk to him.
I got a question, I got some questions. So you're from Afghanistan? Are you staying at the hotel? You're not?
Why your picture?
Well, I just want to.
Your video.
Well, you're staying at the hotel, aren't you?
You know video.
Well, it doesn't matter. I can film you.
It doesn't matter. Why you do?
I can film you. I just got a question. So like, you're staying at the hotel, obviously, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Where do you live?
I have rent. I have my kids, 3 kids.
Oh, you're not staying at the hotel?
No.
Ethan is garbage. So literally he sees a woman who's obviously poor, holding up a sign saying she needs help. He approaches her trying to embarrass her. He's an anti-mask pro-Trumper. He does these things, he harasses people. But this is really a new low, right? To go up to someone who's obviously in a less fortunate situation than you. This makes him feel good about himself. So I want to expose this clown. Based on his Telegram account, this confrontation was with an illegal alien at a hotel. Now, here's what you're gonna see here. The woman is Romanian, but the reality is it doesn't matter. You know, no human being is illegal whatsoever. Here's the next video.
No filmers.
Okay, well, I can legally film, so. Because they were telling me that a lot of the people that were staying at the hotel, they're out here panhandling. So.
No, I am from Romania.
Romania?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Do you know anybody that's staying at the hotel? Or?
No.
No? Okay.
Why?
I'm just.
No picture. Why your picture?
I'm just trying to document. I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist.
No, journalist?
Yeah, journalist.
You're journalist.
Yeah.
You're legitimation.
All right. So I don't know if she's lying or what, guys, but yeah, I know. I got info that they're panhandling out here. So it looks like she could be like a refugee that's staying at the hotel, and I'm sure they're probably told to lie. So who knows? Who knows if she's telling the truth or not?
You're the one lying here, pube face. That's what they call you online, pube face. I like that name better than Ethan. Pube face. Pube face is not a journalist. He just harasses people. Here's the next video.
That looks like hotel supplies. Those look like supplies from the hotel. Are you lying? Are you lying?
I'm not lying. You lying. Yes?
It's people that think they just can come to our country and just tell us what to do. Unbelievable. She's from Romania, apparently. I'm sure she's staying at the hotel, 100%. They think they can just come here and just tell me not to film in public. It's pathetic, man. It's pathetic.
No, you're pathetic, puke face. Now, here's the reality. This individual is bigoted. He's a COVID hoaxer, all right? Has been banned from regular social media platforms. So now he spews his nonsense via Telegram. We have covered this guy before. He has been on one of my famous I Wish You Karen Would segments because he's an ultimate Karen, even though his name is puke face. Towards the end of last month, he was actually banned from the Arizona Capitol after harassing House Minority Leader Reginald Bowden with a racial slur, referring to Bowden's mask as a slave muzzle. They kicked him out for that. According to Arizona law, statute 13-3019, photographing, videotaping, and filming digitally or recording, it is unlawful for any person to knowingly photograph, videotape, film, digitally record, or by any other means secretly view with or without a device another person without their person's consent. Remember, that person is not a public official, okay? However, the subsections of the statute seem to suggest that it would apply to situations dealing with harassment or sexual harassment. I do believe that situation was harassment, by the way. All right, Adrienne, what are your thoughts here?
No, I agree with you. It definitely seems to be harassment. The fact is that she told him who she was and she didn't even need to do that. Right. And yet he still feels that he is kind of deputized in some way as a white male to be able to invade her space, to question her, to doubt her responses, and then to make her out to be the bad guy. You're absolutely right about this person just being trouble, nonsense, and a reflection of this whole kind of almost unfortunate white male American imperialistic mindset and xenophobic behavior. And he's just an embarrassment.
Puke face. Okay, all right. Teachers, come on. Damn, I'm trying to work with y'all, but y'all keep blowing it. Not all of you, but there is a certain group. Once again, a Black History Month lesson gone horribly wrong. A lesson about the 1800s where a teacher specifically told Black students, no, you can only draw pictures of Black people picking cotton and white people working machinery. Yeah, let me give you some background here. Indiana parents and students are beside themselves after their school district went too far during Black History Month. Let's put up the parents. They went on the local news, talked about this in detail. This occurred at Fall Creek Valley Middle School of Lawrence Township in Northeast Indianapolis. Parents Cindy and Raymond Clark, you see them there, spoke with the local news affiliate 13 WTHR, recounting the shock they had over the phone call from their daughter last week about an assignment. Here it is. According to the school district, students were told they could draw a picture showing different ways of life of northern and southern states back in the 1800s. But the Clarks said their daughter's teacher took it a step further, telling students to only draw a Black person picking cotton and a white person working with machinery. Our children said that she specifically said Black people picking cotton, according to Raymond. Feeling offended by the assignment, their daughter was among several students who refused to complete the project. She sent her parents pictures of the drawings made by the students in the class. It drew tears from another student. This is traumatizing. Put up those pictures, okay? We're talking about children. It's sad that these children have to become adults in these situations and say something's not right about what you're telling us to do. They are hurt, they are embarrassed, they are emotional. And thankfully they told their parents because many children would have internalized that message and that message would have come out in other ways. Cindy added she was glad to hear there were students who stood up for what they believed, and I am too. Both Cindy and Raymond, who own several successful local businesses, said they can't understand why the lesson wasn't more well-rounded. Picking cotton is forced labor. It's not a part of our heritage. There are so many other things that could have been discussed, like inventors and business owners, Raymond said. And Raymond is right. But see, this is what systemic oppression, this is what systemic bias, implicit bias, hyper-aggressive racism, bigotry, this is what it all looks like. It's damaging to children because the teacher is involved in distributing this madness. That curriculum was insane. To respond to concerns from parents, the Lawrence Township sent this statement. Let me read the statement. Here it is. The MSD of Lawrence Township is committed to providing high quality instruction to all students. The assignment in question does not reflect the commitment and demonstrates poor judgment. School and district officials are involved and have communicated with both the teacher and the family who came forward with concerns. Well, there it is. This would not be tolerated, damn it. We have communicated with the teacher. Okay? The Clark family wants to see curriculum changes following the incident that has not been noted yet, with Raymond saying, and I quote, racism has gone on for far too long. We know it's not going anywhere, but it doesn't belong in Lawrence Township schools or in any district. I completely concur. Now, here's when I tell you the truth about critical race theory. It's not taught in K through 12 education, but it damn sure should be taught to some K through 12 teachers. Because this is what happens when they don't understand their own bias or they are allowed to coexist in an atmosphere that protects their own racism. It hurts our children. Adrienne, what are your thoughts about this story?
You know what, you're absolutely right. The fact is that these teachers need the education necessary so that they don't continue to perpetuate the racism that has been internalized in them, because it's essentially part of the problem and it keeps things going in this oppressive society that we've seen. But also the fact is that, you've seen so many people talk about Black History Month, and their belief is that Black history starts with slavery and essentially that it ends with slavery. And all that does is continue to make Black people continue to appear in the eyes of white people as in need of help or in some servient role. It's not our history, that is white history. Our history is about our achievements, our legacy, the things that we've created and contributed, notwithstanding the oppression that we face every single day and continue to face. As I mentioned, the HBCU bombings continuing, those threats continuing to happen. The fact is that we continue to rise despite all of the efforts of the white patients getting, smaller and thinner. And we continue to contribute and we continue to just be a part of a society that often tells us that we should not even be in existence or be here. And that is Black history. That is about us. So it's like, if you want to talk about slavery, do it on your own time, because February, even the shortest month of the year, it's still ours. So get it right.
Get it right. And here's the reality. Black history, when we discuss Black history did not start with slavery, number one. Number two, the original design of Black History Month was actually Black History Week. It was to celebrate, yes, historical accomplishments, but also current accomplishments of Black people in America. So I don't call it Black History Month, I call it Black Legacy Month, to connect the historical reality as well as the current Black excellence that's in front of us. All right, I got a question for everybody. What in the red state hell?
You can take a gun, shoot somebody in the face. It's not hard. Sometimes it might even be fun if they're a godless commie.
Now, what they're trying to do is sneak the COVID vaccine in your salads.
I hate math. Somebody say amen.
Even now in America, there are endless mandates, an intentional crippling of our economy, an invasion at our border, disrespect of our law enforcement, our soldiers, and our veterans, a failing public education system for our children, the all-out attack on our health, and the slaughter of our precious preborn children. Texas has never rolled over for anyone. Texas is a state of fighters. And in 2022, we definitely have a fight on our hands.
You see, this is why Republican minority outreach is failing. Literally, they have a commercial with whips, horses, and guns. But they want black people to vote for them. Let me bring your attention to Bianca Gracia, who is Latino, a Latina, and the co-founder of Latinos for Trump, all right? She's a Trumpite, she's a real Trumpite. And she also is telling us that if people don't vote for her, well, God will deal with them directly. Here it is.
You know, today I just finished a interview with some pastors, and I told them, I said, straight up, I said, I'm only going to win if the church shows up. That's it. If you do not show up, then you will be held accountable, because I have been appointed and assigned for this position, and the God is testing you all. I don't have anything else to say to you other than that. So you're going to either have to show up and show out, or you're going to have to deal with the Lord.
All right, I guess I'm gonna be dealing with the Lord then, because I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure your ass never gets elected to anything, period, okay? I don't know who your opponent is, but I will know all of your opponents, and I will probably give them money equally to make sure you never get in political office. I will deal with the consequences as they come. And I'm sure you believe in white Jesus, by the way, positive. So this is what we're dealing with. These individuals cannot get into public office, in my opinion. We should not elect them. Now, she said she's appointed and assigned. Great, perfect. Fortunately for us, the position has to be elected, okay? So that hasn't happened. All right, Adrienne, thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of definitely, let's hope this woman is not elected in the office. Her thought that she is appointed and assigned by our Lord Jesus. Hey, maybe we all have a different Jesus, and I'm sure you have white Jesus. I'm gonna rock with baby Jesus, and he's got a melanin count, and that's cool. But it's like this individual, she needs to go somewhere, her and her whip.
And her slave patrol in the background, okay?
There you go.
All right, always a pleasure, Adrienne, I thank you every time. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work, get a copy of your book.
All right, so you can check me out on Twitter at Adrienne Law, Instagram at Adrienne Lawrence. My book, Staying in the Game, the playbook for beating workplace sexual harassment, is on sale in the TYT store, so definitely check that out. Also, check me out on Rebel HQ. I've got my Overruled segment, and we're hitting views, so you are gonna wanna be in the know.
Yeah, you gangster with them views. Good stuff. All right, thank you so much. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay. The concept of the Young Turks means the audience, they are the Young Turks. They are the go-getters. They are the ones making the emphatic change happen in their local community. The reality is that we've always, young and the not so young, we've always cared about news. But when you do not see the messengers of the news look like you, when they do not share your experiences, exposures, and environment, and there's a disconnect between you and the news. I lecture in mass communications. One thing I tell all of my students, there is no such thing as non-biased news. It never has been. Non-biased news has always been an illusion. Let's go back to the 60s and 70s, where people would say that was the purity of non-biased news. News has a segment. That segment has a time. That time, you must do your story and be finished. That means the producer, the writer, the orator has to take out what they don't think is important and only leave in what they believe is important. They have a limited time to tell the story. They do not have time to tell everybody's version or everybody's side. And they get to choose the facts that they bring to you, as well as the nuance, which really is a word for opinion, that they bring to you, the context they bring to you. So we've always had a level of bias in news. Here's the issue. The issue is to not deceive individuals as if you don't have some level of opinion with your news commentary. And that's what TYT has never done. They've always been authentic in their approach to progressive ideology and their news analysis and political breakdown. And I think that's how you actually win the heart and soul of individuals who are consuming information from you, because now they see themselves in you.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not going to want to lose, and he's going to run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's no bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
No, but
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Let me go to some of these comments. Always remarkable comments. I can't read them all. We'll read as many as I'm able. Jessa says, yes, journalism is when you start asking strangers questions and then dismiss their answers. Right. This guy's just such a nutcase. Craig Souffle says, idiot Ethan looks like Wolverine's armpit. I actually tend to agree. That's a great observation. Lynn says, perhaps if these teachers taught Black history all year, instead of limiting it to 1 month, they'd get better at it. You think? Yeah. Colorado Blue Blazer regular. I kind of thought that pride was one of the deadly sins. How much worse can it get than believing God chose you? And then she says, like, God is gonna punish us if we don't vote for her. Well, you know, there's a lot I could say. Tricia Tennell, do these damn teachers have common sense? Some of them don't. And I'm speaking as a former high school teacher myself. Not all of them have common sense. It's real unfortunate. Most of them do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have Mr. Eric Brakey, a former state senator out of Maine, senior spokesperson for Young Americans for Liberty. Senator, thank you for being on the program. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dr. Ritchie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to having this dialogue with you.
Same here. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about mask mandates in the United States of America. So if you would, give us your sentiment and I will opine.
Well, first let me say, when masks were talked about early in the pandemic and we were looking for, the thing that would let us get out of our homes and live our lives again, I was very open to the idea when it was a voluntary, short-term, compromise. But I think as we've gone on through this over the last 2 years, we've got a lot of data now. We can look back and we can see that the positive effects of vaccine mandates are the positive effects of the mask mandates are marginal at best. It's very disputable. The negative consequences, I don't think we really talked about going into this, but there have been some severe negative consequences. I'm sure we'll talk about more. But even more than that, the process in which they were imposed on so much of the American public was not our typical democratic process through which we in this country are supposed to make policy. This wasn't voted on by our elected officials. This wasn't voted on by the people. There were no public hearings. There was no opportunity for public input. These were decisions made in what felt like an emergency situation by governors, and there has been no public input along the way.
Okay.
And so yes, go on.
So let me respond to that. Number one, you're incorrect about the public input. As a matter of fact, a recent poll, CBS News, YouGov did a poll. Still, roughly 60% of Americans are for states having mask mandates. A larger majority of Americans are for businesses being able to enforce their own mask mandates per establishment. And the rule, the statute, and law that allows for states to do a mask mandate is codified in the emergency laws of the Constitution. It allows for a public health crisis to be treated a little differently. I understand if we were talking about a personal health issue, that's different. But we're talking about a public health crisis. A public health crisis has a different allowable response by way of the United States government. This has been routine. We've seen this happen over the course of human history in America. But all of a sudden, it's problematic. Now, we'll ask you this very simple question. Do you think a mask mandate is an intrusion on a constitutional right?
So first, let me get back to that one thing on public polling. Public polling may say one thing, but that's not the same thing as having a public process with legislative hearings and hearing out the pros and cons of a policy before we put that into place. We never really had that policy. We never really had that process through the systems of our government. And as far as when you talk about emergencies and doing things by emergency, I suppose I can understand that if we're talking about like a 2-week situation where there's no time, but we're 2 years into this. I guess I'm I'm open to the idea of in an emergency, a governor putting in place a short-term policy like this, but not a 2-year policy. We've had plenty of times to return to our normal democratic process.
Let's be very clear about what's happening right now. The vast majority of states do not have, and did not have, never had a statewide mask mandate. Some jurisdictions, local cities, counties, et cetera, had their version of it. But now at this point in the game, Senator, you would agree, the conversation really is about private businesses and schools having mask mandates. So let's start with private businesses first. Do you believe that private businesses have the right to enforce mask mandates per policy of their facility?
Yes. I ultimately believe in private property rights, and whether or not I agree with the science behind the particular policy. If a business owner decides that they want to have a policy in place that you got to wear a mask to go inside their business, I'll either take my business elsewhere or I'll comply with that. I think that's their right as the property owner.
And I agree with you 100%. Thank you for saying that. I think your argument has intellectual integrity. Now, what do you say to conservatives who are trying to champion bills that would make it against the law for that establishment to do something that you have said on my show is lawful to do?
Right. So I think that a lot of conservatives are kind of in a place where they see, they're questioning whether how much of many of these decisions by private businesses are truly the decisions of private businesses, or a decision that's being kind of arm twisted and coming from a place of coercion. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying I think that's the standpoint that some folks are coming from.
So they want to create. You got to think about how illogical this is. You mean to tell me that conservatives who routinely will say what you just said, private businesses can enforce private policies. You mean to tell me that all of a sudden conservatives are willing to abandon that principle for the sake of the mask debate and take away the independent authority, the legal authority of a business to enforce this very simple rule for their establishment? You're saying now that it's allowable or it makes sense that Republicans want to create laws that would take away a business owner's right and ability to enforce facility rules?
Well, I would say, that's not my position, and so I don't want to be in the position of defending someone else's position.
But why is it the position of so many Republicans, brother? Senator, that's the question, because that is a policy issue. Because literally you have legislation that has been presented this year, legislation was presented last year, and some even made it out of committee and out of chamber that said we want to take this right away from private business owners. You all should be speaking up saying, no. You cannot take the simple right to regulate as it relates to business owners, because where does it stop, brother? If you can't say, listen, you got to have a mask to come into my establishment, then who's to say you can tell somebody you got to have a shirt to come into my store, or you got to have on shoes? Like, where does it stop? Or you got to have on clothes. Where does it stop if a private business owner cannot have common sense regulation and restriction as it relates to who enters the facility?
Yeah, certainly. I agree with you. We can't abandon our principles on either sides of the aisle based on the individual policy. Right, but and maybe that's happening in some places. I think far more clear cut though is when we're talking about government facilities. We're talking about, you mentioned government schools, right? So in our government schools, you have kind of these mask policies being mandated on school children. Yep. You have the fact that when you look at the effectiveness of these mask mandates over the last 2 years, let's say you look state to state in terms of what have COVID rates been, what have hospitalization rates been, what are COVID death rates, and you compare states with mask mandates or lockdown, or I guess we're focusing specifically on the mask mandates, but you can't really see a difference in the graphs, in the trends.
That's untrue.
State.
That's untrue. The National Institutes, the national. Well, go ahead and cite it. Cite where you get your information from. Where?
Yeah, it's I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but it's like COVID graphs they forgot. I'd be happy to. I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah, I never heard of those fellas, but I do know of the National Institutes of Health, who did a massive study, not only in America but other countries as well, as it relates to the public policy dynamic of children and mask. Okay, here's the reality of that data: mask, when enforced, decreases the spread of COVID. It's real simple. Let me read some of the data to you, all right? You already know, I'm sure, the data about how we've had a significant decrease in flu and other viruses because of masks. that should be enough. But for some reason it's not. But that should be enough proof that masks work, because you've had historically low numbers as it relates to every virus that can be airborne in America. They tested 4 types of masks. The N95 respirator mask, which is your creme de la creme. They tested the 3-ply disposable surgical mask, the 2-ply cotton polyester mask, and the regular cotton mask. What they found is that every mask decreased the spread of COVID by over 60%. The most effective was at 88%. They also found that it significantly decreased in similar numbers you contracting COVID-19. This is simple. This is not complex. I don't see what the debate is as it relates to this. And let's go to school systems. Do you believe school systems or a school board has the right to mandate a mask policy with children in the classroom, or do you think that's an overreach of their authority?
Look, I think that at the end of the day, the best system we could have is where parents can choose the system that complies with what they think is best for their kid. Ultimately, I think that decisions should best be made locally by the local school boards and not be pushed one way or the other by state officials or federal officials. I think that we get the best decisions when the decisions are made by the people who are most closely involved in those decisions. But you have many places in the country. I was just talking recently with the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. Their local school board systems have voted they don't want to do mask mandates, but it's federal courts that have come in and said that they have to, despite the fact you can look at this. I mean, we can debate about what the relative merits are of the mask mandates. I think that it's overstated, your case there. But let's put that aside for now. Let's talk about the negative impacts in our schools on learning. Let's talk about you have many kids with special needs. You have deaf kids who now cannot participate as they were able to before because they can't engage in lip reading. You have kids who wear glasses whose educational experience is being diminished because their glasses are always fogging up. They can't see what's going on in the classroom. They're constantly having to fidget with that. You have very young kids who many studies have come out now showing that there are potential negative ramifications for social emotional development when you can't see people's faces when you're a young child. There are many negative consequences.
Oh, okay. You ever been a teacher?
No, I have not.
Okay. Students learn sign language in school. They don't read lips. They're not taught to read lips. They actually learn sign language, and curriculum is based on that system. All right, number one. Number two, let's go back to your proclamation about school boards. I actually agree with you. I think the decision should be local based on the observation of science for that local area. However, you have governors, DeSantis and others, who seek to take away the ability of those local school boards to make local decisions. He's a Republican, but he's not the only one doing that. I agree, it should be done at the local level. Number three, if you don't believe, and you're not part of that movement, but you're connected by extension. But for those who do not believe school boards have the right to enforce a mask policy, why do school boards have the right to enforce vaccine policies? Why do school boards have the right to enforce a dress code? Because these are all allowable under the principle of the authority of that school board. There's already a vaccine regimen. Anyone who's gone through K through 12 education, 100% of all public education in the United States requires you have a certain regimen of vaccines. Well, that's mandated by the school board. So you're telling me that school boards can mandate the intrusive reality of a vaccine into your body, but they're unable, for the sake of public health, to mandate you wear a mask while they observe the science. Does that add up to you, Senator?
Well, there's a couple of things at play here, right? When there's state dollars involved, when there's federal dollars involved, all of these different levels of government want to have a say in the policies that those dollars they're responsible for being stewards of. Everyone wants to have a say. And so that does kind of get complicated when you're talking about all these different levels of funding and what the policy should be.
But why are Republicans trying to take away this very basic right of a school board to enact common sense public health policy? I mean, you got to think about it, brother. You literally have Republican governors passing laws to eliminate the ability of the local school board to implement a public health policy when they have always had the ability to do so. That's contrary to even your belief, stated belief on my show.
Right, you could ask the same question in reverse. Why are there many places where local school boards are voting no and they're being overridden by higher authorities in government along the way? It's ultimately both sides.
Let me ask you this: where is the federal government? Where is the federal government overriding a local school board by legislation? Where has that happened?
You can look at Knox County, Tennessee, as I just mentioned. I had a recent interview on my show, Free America Now, with the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, Glenn Jacobs, who is talking about how federal courts have come in and overruled their local decisions to not have mask mandates by saying that they have to. So there's an example. So this was not done by statute.
This was done by judicial ruling, not by statute. My question is, what statute exists from the federal government that overrides local control? None. But there are statutes that exist from state governments, only ran by Republicans who have decided to take away local control of school boards. My point to you is this, Senator. I know you're a conservative, but what you're saying on my show does not add up with what conservatives are doing in your party. If you say the control should be local and you're willing to cite a judicial ruling, that's fair. What's not fair is when you give a pass to the Republicans that literally created a law, and that law is antithetical to your own values. Why don't you call them out too?
Well, I mean, here's the thing at the end of the day, right? Again, we're talking about state taxpayer dollars. And so the states are always gonna have some kind of say in what's going on in education. We can debate kind of where those lines are.
Education is also federally subsidized. It has significant money from the federal government, which allows, by the way, the jurisdiction of federal courts because of their interplay with federal money. It resolves a federal issue. You cannot go to federal court without one or two things happening. Either it answers a federal or constitutional question, or it resolves a federal matter, all right? So I can use that same argument for why federal courts are allowed to get involved as you use, but why states are allowed to get involved. The bottom line is the principle of local boards should be a principle regardless of which particular side or entity disagrees. Do you believe as a principle that local boards should be able to make the decision that here's the observable data, we are going to implement a mask mandate, and the governor of this state, let's say it's Florida, should not take that authority away from our locally elected board, right?
Yeah, if they want to not accept state taxpayer dollars, they should be free to do whatever they want. If they want to have a system that is totally locally funded, then they should be able to do what they want. But as long as there are state taxpayer dollars involved, there needs to be some real public input in these decisions as they're put in place.
But you see how you changed your position, Senator? You see how you just changed your position on my show? You literally started from the premise of you agree with local control. It should be worked out through the local board and the parents in that local community. And then when I brought to your attention that it's actually Republicans, by and large, who's trying to take away local control, you change your argument. And now your argument is, well, that's fine if they don't want to get state funding anymore. Come on, man, Senator, stand on principle, brother. You don't have to agree with me, but stand on the principle. The principle is decent. All right, even if I disagree with it, I would be happy to know that the local community is for it. If the local community is for it, so be it, all right? But stand on that principle.
Well, many people in these local communities are speaking up and they're not being heard in the decisions that are happening, which is ultimately why the real answer to the problem is not to try to impose one size fits all policies in either direction.
Wait a minute, that's exactly what policy is, Senator. Wait a minute, no, hell to the law, Senator. You were a policy expert. Come on, brother.
If we had a system of school choice, parents could send their kids to the schools that complied with the policies that they wanted to see there.
So Senator, that's a policy as well, by the way. You actually passed legislation, you have voted on laws. There is no such thing as a policy that simply works however you want it to work for every group. Literally, policy means this is the rule for everybody. There's not a dress code policy for that person and another one for this one. There's not a vaccine protocol for this student and another one for that one. The policy has to equally apply, right?
Yes, And right now we are in a system where people are kind of landlocked into these school systems, whether they agree with the policies there or not. If you free
they
people
don't have
up,
to agree with. Come on, man. They don't have to agree with the dress code, but you got to respect it, or your student can't go there anymore. We've never had issues with these common sense policies. All of a sudden, we have an issue with a local school board making decisions due to the public health care requirements of their authority. They have to make this decision. We get to sit back and pontificate. That's what we get to do, right? And we can Monday morning quarterback all day. But they have a responsibility for the public welfare and health of those children. And if mask decreases the spread and contraction of COVID-19, it's a good decision to make.
Well, first of all, I would draw your attention to a study, I believe it was in North Carolina, that analyzed 90,000 students and found not a single instance of transmission from students to teachers in that study.
That's called an outlier study. 94% of all studies conducted across the planet that's peer reviewed shows that masks decrease COVID-19, even if you're wearing a mask that's cotton. The mask that does it best is obviously the N95 mask, but all of them are effective. Senator, it's a public health issue, brother. Come on, man.
I agree to disagree. I think that in a decade we will look back at these policies of forced masking the way that we look back at the policies of duck and cover in the Cold War era. Does a wooden desk protect you from a nuclear explosion? It seems kind of silly to look back at it and think that it does.
Do you go to a doctor? You ever went to a doctor?
Absolutely, all the time.
When you go there, do they wear masks?
Sometimes.
Yeah, have a good day, sir. I appreciate you, Senator. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. All right. Remember, deep dive with Jordan Eulis next. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.